Yeah, how you guys doing today? This is the Chini and Maji podcast by Impact Africa Network, episode number 3, I think.
Yes, episode number 3.
So yeah, we're kind of getting our feet wet in this podcast game, and yeah, we're excited to be sharing with you guys our thoughts and what we're learning and so on and so forth. So yeah, so today we thought we'd talk a little bit about what we are kind of I guess the core of our program, what we do and what we believe, and which is a systematic approach to entrepreneurship and startup development. If you look at some of the best practices in the world, some of the folks who are the leading practitioners in building startups and entrepreneurship, you're starting to notice that people are applying a very scientific approach to the process of actually developing a startup or an entrepreneur, basically a company or even an entrepreneurship endeavor. So something has changed clearly between the old way of doing things and there's a new way of doing things today. So we thought we'd just kind of talk a little bit about how we see this and what we are doing to actually bridge the gap for local entrepreneurs, local startups. Like I said, that's the core of our program. So this is something that we strongly believe in. And yeah, I think there's a book out there by a gentleman out of MIT called The Discipline of Entrepreneurship. There are books like Crossing the Chasm. There is Peter Thiel's 0 to 1. And they all have similar themes that they talk about a very systematic, scientific way of approaching developing a company, building a startup, or any entrepreneurship endeavor for that matter. Something has definitely changed. The world is becoming much more entrepreneurship driven. And there's something that has changed, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So yeah, that's setting the stage.
Just a bit. You can kind of get going with that. So I think over the years I've come to understand that running a company, and especially for technology-based companies, startups, startups is a science, and I really love that because there needs to be some sort of strategic way you go about how you sell, how you build your product, and so on. So I think to kind of take it back, we're going to look at what we have been doing so far.
Right.
Yeah.
So in your view, Mumbi, what's your understanding of the status quo in the local market? What is the standard or status quo business approach that you've seen, that you've been exposed to?
Okay, for me it's taking the startup side. It's more about, hey, I wanna do the startup thing. So find a problem you're feeling passionate about, you wanna solve, build a product around that, then hit up the people who are supposed to buy your product and start selling. So this has worked. Like, I wouldn't say companies have been built off of this. But then what we actually talked about this before, and it's more of people kind of get stuck at some point. So that's one bit of it. And then there's the other type of entrepreneurship, where there's something you've been doing, or someone talks to you about this idea, and you build a solution or product of any kind, or a business around that. And again, it's the same thing. You start finding customers, and you're talking to people, and anyone who you think might be interested in your solution or your company. Yeah, so that's just the gist of it.
Yeah, at the same time, it's interesting. It has worked, but that's because we're looking at the false spot, the positives, right?
Exactly.
There's a word that actually describes this. It's a word out there in the school of thought around when you actually see the evidence of what has worked. You're always going to say, okay, it has worked.
It's worked. Well, we wouldn't say we've not had companies till now it has worked. Whether it's worked as effectively as it should, no, that's a question.
That's a question. Yeah. Because how many of them have? So, because you don't see what hasn't worked because by definition, it's not visible. It's not visible.
Exactly.
But the reality is, if you look at the statistics, 90% of businesses fail within 5 years. And the question becomes, why is that? Startups is even probably higher, right? Because
it is actually.
They are much more kind of like experimental in nature. And so if people are going to actually invest their time and money and resources into building a startup, there's got to be a better way to actually make it less reduce the mortality rate, so to speak.
And that's actually a huge concern for me, because I know I've talked about this before, and I actually talked to over 15 to 16 startups, and ideally what you're saying is true. Like it's actually way over 90%. And the issue is not having an MVP, which is a minimal viable product. You have the product. The issue is once you go to the customer, something changes. And if you don't know how to kind of get through that part, then that's where the trouble starts.
Yeah, I mean that's the real thing, right? So you build a product and you take it to market, right? And you realize that some of the assumptions you had don't hold. And then how do you actually start to build a systematic approach to getting the right answer? Because your product is still may need some tweaking and so on and so forth. And if you can find an efficient way to get into the right answer in terms of you're building a product that people want, giving people something that they want, that's a system. There's got to be a way to shorten that process or make it a little bit much more scientific.
And this is not forgetting what you were talking about. Technology is disruptive. So most of the people you're even selling to don't have experience with the type of product you're dealing with. So this is actually the biggest differentiator between your typical technology company and, if I'm making a new type of maybe oil, people already have oil. So it's me proving why mine is better.
Right.
That's different.
Use it and see.
Yeah. It's like, mine is better than your Nivea or,
Right.
So for a technology company, you're building a solution that doesn't exist. So that's a whole other
problem. You're asking people to change their behavior in something that they don't have a framework as easy as your skin to evaluate.
Exactly. So they're like, what about my data? What about the real questions? How easy is it to use? How long does it take me to learn how to use it? Like
all these challenges, right?
There's a lot to work.
There's a lot of I mean, so the status quo is people traditionally have built businesses kind of very blindly because you saw a problem, you kind of found a product, sold it, and that was it. Right now there's something that has changed clearly, and the common denominator is technology, right? Right now people are starting businesses on Instagram, they're starting businesses on Facebook, and those businesses are eating into the customer base of existing maybe brick and mortar retail businesses. So for example, I know people who actually have started makeup businesses on Instagram and they're building them and they're just straight out of school and whatever. And so what does that mean for Mac or any of these other kind of retail? If you've invested a lot of money into setting up a retail business at an expensive mall. Okay, what does that mean for you? That means that, holy cow, your assumptions have changed. Some university student at KU is building a customer base. You're
one of the biggest competitors.
Right. So what does that mean? Right. So there's two things there. One is this technology that is allowing somebody to get into business. It's impacting an existing business owner. So the common denominator there is technology is changing the world. Right. Software is eating the world, as Mark Andreessen put it. So in this particular context, because amateurs or young people or inexperienced business people are actually getting into business. And experienced people are in an environment which they're not super familiar with, which is this new technology landscape. So they both have a similar kind of challenge. They're in a new environment, right? Either if you're an emerging entrepreneur, you don't have a lot of business experience, but you're just reacting to the conditions and you're building something, right? And then if you're in a new world of technology, if you're established kind of business owner, now you gotta learn, you gotta do something different. You're both in a different.
You build new strategies around.
And so the common denominator is technology, and in this new world where things are very different, things are very fluid, things are very dynamic. What does that mean?
That's a big question.
That's a big question.
You're leaving me with a big question.
It's an exciting time to be alive, It's
awesome. I don't know. That's it's all about just building a strategy. It's what we've been talking about. Entrepreneurship is a science. Now you have to sit down and think. You have to. It's exactly
right. So it's like this. It's not as simple as putting a bunch of money, getting a bunch of money, and capitalizing a store in Junction or pick your mall of choice, and all of a sudden you've got foot traffic, and you've got a captive audience, and you're just gonna sit back and be a rent collector. things are different now, right?
Exactly.
And so this is a world where, you know, it's technology driven. People, you have to actually understand a new environment, and you have to approach it very differently.
Yeah.
It's not 1 + 1 = 2 now. It's a bunch of other equations that you gotta lay on top of that.
Exactly.
So
your competitors are not who you think your competitors are.
Your customers are not where you think they'll be.
Exactly.
So there's a whole new other thing, and so that's the change that we're seeing. And from our perspective, you know, that's why we're excited about, you know, introducing a systematic approach, a scientific approach to the entrepreneurship landscape, to the startup development process. These are things that have been proven to work in, you know, folks who, let's call a spade a spade. There are markets that are much more advanced than we are in terms of business development and startup development. Y Combinator and this whole proliferation of accelerators. Some are obviously more effective than others because you know, everybody and their grandma nowadays is doing an accelerator, right? And you wonder, okay, so what's your experience? Where are you coming from? What gives you the bona fides to actually step in and actually say, I can teach you how to execute a systematic plan, a systematic process to developing a successful business. Okay. So not all accelerators are equal, but let's take the best of the best. What are people in the most developed, you know, ecosystems doing? How are they approaching this new reality, right? I mean, I know you're a big fan of Y Combinator.
Yeah, because
maybe you can talk about that.
I don't know. For me, it was understanding. So I know I don't want to say complained, but then, you know, the sort of education I had when it comes to building products and, you know, the technical side of it, you leave being at 100%.
Right.
The question is, so what happens when I'm in a startup setting? You know, you find yourself in the situation where you have a product, and then now how do you sell it? That's the time you discover that you need to sit down and think. So what's the profile of the customer I'm dealing with? And the reason I love YC is because they've built that process for you. Everything from, you know, figuring out product market fit and, you know, all these aspects. But then the biggest challenge also comes into the fact that whatever system they've built is particular to their market. So that's everything. So as I'm reading it, it helps me to understand simple concepts. Maybe, you know, concepts that you've never heard of, like product market fit and, you know, market segmentation and, you know, all these things.
Customer acquisition costs.
Yeah, exactly.
Lifetime value.
Yeah, this is some things you'd never, financial modeling, you know, you just throw around some names, but things you'd never thought about. But then now when you bring it back to a local market, now, you know, a lot of things change.
How do you translate that into
a lot of things change.
Into local conditions?
Yeah, exactly, because we're working, you know, what is a typical type of Kenyan customer? What's their profile? How are they internet averse? Are they, you know, what do they use a smartphone for? What do they, you know, so there's a lot to think about when it comes to now extrapolating that and bringing it down to
right. And there's something to be said about watching something on a video or kind of and applying it directly into your business. Translation is always difficult.
Yeah.
The reality is, you know, being able to. So, for example, I spent 15 years working in Silicon Valley in startups over there. It took me a long time to actually start to develop a pattern recognition framework to be able to understand. Oh, these are best practices. This is what the ecosystem is. This is how startups are formed. These are the challenges they face. These are the strategies and tactics they use to actually overcome them. So after that period of time, it's become kind of second nature to me. And I am really excited about taking that know-how and sitting down with the entrepreneurs and narrowing the gap between where they are and the answers they need, and working with them to systematically kind of you know, bridge the gap. There's a significant knowledge gap, and it's really across the board. That's why Y Combinator exists. That's why you know, venture funds like Andreessen Horowitz, they have a $1.5 billion fund. Yeah. So they can actually go and hire the best of the best in terms of people who worked in startups, who can bring that expertise into one platform. So if they fund you, you don't just get the money, you also get that expertise firsthand to help you narrow the gap between specific business domains, whether it's product marketing, whether it's finance, whether it's HR, whether it's, you know, design. All these different, they have this expertise in-house. How powerful and enabling is. That's just amazing capability to actually bring into a situation. Who's doing the same thing in our market? Right?
Yeah, that's a gap.
Right, that's a significant gap, right? And so we are building this. We are excited about bringing this kind of systematic approach to helping our local founders narrow the execution gap.
Exactly.
Right? Be able to ask the right questions, right? Be able to put together the right plans, experiment against them, iterate quickly, and move towards the next milestone.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what we're doing with our approach. We're putting together this open course because we think this knowledge should be scaled up in our business environment. Right? More people should know about this. Business is different, so we have this this open course where we talk about a disciplined approach to developing your to building your business. Right? And it works also for just traditional businesses, not just technology startups, because at the end of the day, like we said, technology is impacting everybody. It's cutting across everybody. Yeah. So everybody, there is a technology refresh across the business landscape. Yeah. What that means is that even if you're a traditional business, you need now to incorporate technology into your whole operation because it's becoming fundamentally important to your entire business operation.
Exactly.
And so that means that you need to learn new things. You actually almost have to create another business on top of the business platform already.
You have to create a whole other strategy to cover this.
Right. And so the question becomes, if you don't have that exposure or that understanding, you're going to make a lot of mistakes, right? And we're seeing that happening already.
And it's everywhere, actually, because and I think the most common thing is you can see newspapers kind of going through that. I think that's an example everyone can relate to. It's more of, when I was growing up, it was, go, buy your Gazette for 40 shillings and bring it to the house. And now it's more of, okay, so where can I get it online? And they have to think about this because there's a blogger every day coming up with places where you can get news. I get my news from Twitter. I'm not going to buy Daily Nation. So how do you work around that?
How do they respond to this?
Yeah, so that's
crazy. So this is affecting everybody.
Yeah.
And so the program we're putting together is so relevant, right? This systematic approach to, helping people who are being affected by the new technological reality, right? Whether you're a startup, whether you're an existing business, right? Understanding, developing a systematic way to interrogating the business opportunity in front of you and developing a set of experiments, right, that are inexpensive and very effective to get into the right answers so that you can instantiate and set up a going concern, a sustainable business. And that's what our systematic approach to developing. What should we call this thing? We're still struggling for a name.
But I feel like the systematic thing works because it's a system, man.
Right.
It's a system. It's a science. It's I don't know.
Right. It's a systematic approach to entrepreneurship and startup development.
Exactly.
And taking my experience from Silicon Valley, I have lived this world. This is what I love to do. All the books that we've read from the Disciplined Entrepreneurship by Bill Aulet, Crossing the Chasm, Peter Thiel's got
0 to 1. I love that book.
And the interesting thing is they overlap. You start to see patterns. And the interesting thing is when I read these books, a lot of the things I'm like, I kind of knew that inherently, and that's where I'm wondering, like, they're not new concepts to me.
Just someone needed to kind of point it out.
Articulate it, and I'm like, that's kind of like, I had developed that knowledge just through my experience, but having a framework, then I can say, okay, now we can take these concepts, put them into a system, and allow people to actually benefit from them, right? Through an open course model, through advisory programs, working with startups on a one-on-one basis, the startup school that we will be doing once, 3 times a year. And it's
all about bringing some structure into entrepreneurship.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Structure, systems, knowledge, in a way that people can use it.
And and I think for me the thing that keeps standing out over and over again is creating a model that works for the local markets.
Right.
Because the issue is this exists. This has been proven in other markets and other ecosystems. here, if someone asked you what is Startup 101 for building a startup in Nairobi, for example, what do you say? You need to create, I don't want to call it standardized because it can't be too standard because it also changes as you move on, but just some basic principles that can guide you to build a strategy around, so my first thing after this is,
what's my next?
Yeah, what is my, exactly. That's the biggest issue. What's my next step? Because that's what startups get confused because now you're running everywhere, you're not sure where to start, you're not sure where to end. Like,
you're in the death spiral, so to speak.
Yeah, right? Because you have no idea. Honestly, in all honesty, you have no idea what you're doing. And it's more of, I will talk to you, I call it by chance selling. I'll talk to anyone who wants to talk to you.
Right.
And that can work, but it can also drive you nuts because now you'll talk to 1,000 people to get one customer.
Right.
And yet, maybe if you...
And how are you going to repeat? Then the question becomes, how do you repeat the success?
Exactly.
Do you speak to another 1,000 people?
Exactly. Now you see, that's exactly, because now you're running around and you have no kind of strategy around that.
Yeah.
But listening to people like Peter Thiel and understanding concepts of how I love the story of PayPal, it's pretty much one of the most talked about sort of theories because they're the first people who kind of helped people understand, online payments on eBay. It's something that wasn't being done. People are paying for things using checks. So that's now like their type of version. So what's a Kenyan kind of version for that? So that just kind of building strategies around how you build
at the end of the day,
startups in Africa.
Right. At the end of the day, these are learnable things. I think you play this out 10 years down the road, and if we do this right as an ecosystem, as a region of the world, we'll be able to build great African companies, and we'll have our own stories and champions and leaders. I'm not a believer in, bowing to like.
Exactly.
I will learn from them. I will honor them. I will look up. I will look to learn from them.
Yeah.
But it's about how can I take that knowledge and apply it, and we need to kind of get to a point where we're like, you know what? Yeah, the knowledge is there, right? The
genius is there.
Right.
Yeah.
So the brilliance is there in the market. Let's just put it together.
Exactly.
And that's what Impact Africa Network is about.
Yeah. Impact
Africa Network is about saying, you know what? Africans can do awesome things too. Right? Yeah. And what it is that it's bringing this disparate players together in a way that serves the ecosystem, or it serves entrepreneurs, right? And so I guess if there's one thing I would say is that if I look at the status quo in this market, is there's still an underappreciation of an intellectual approach to business, right? Yeah. People tend to still be a little bit kind of like fly by the seat of their pants or wing it, or kind of like I'll figure it out as I go. You gotta get started, but at the end of the day now you gotta have a systematic way that you say, okay, these are my assumptions, and I'm going to test my assumptions. Exactly. And if they fail, I'll know, you know what I'm saying? I'll go to the next thing. So there's a need for, I don't know, I mean, I'm recently back in the market, I'm kind of working with entrepreneurs, and my sense is that people tend to be a little bit juakali, right? And I'm generalizing here because there's some brilliant people who've done amazing things, but I think we need to just take things to the next level, right? Where we're in a world where it's a very, this technology will not abide an unthoughtful approach.
And you see, so actually, the weirdest thing is that you're not wrong, because that's a fact, but then the only, like for me, I think it's more like this information doesn't exist. Like there's no that's what I was talking about. There's no specific place I can go to and someone will tell me this is me do X, Y, Z. The things is I probably should build a BMC, I should have this, but like the systematic approach we're working on, I've not seen it. I've not come across it. I don't know anyone who has, because whatever exists for other markets. Right. No one has extrapolated this. No one has brought it down to a local market, to an African market, to a Kenyan market, to a Nairobi market. So for me, what makes me most excited about what we're doing is me thinking of 10 years from today, and when we're having our junior students in the JQuats and the KUs and the Nairobi University, being able to access this knowledge just off
first hand.
like this is not
should be just
this is
standard operating procedure.
Yeah, exactly.
Should be available.
Making that easy cuts out, you know, because that mortality rate that's over 90 right now, like we're now working with 40. So literally the pipeline, the amount of startups that are coming in from at the end of the pipeline, it's now we're at the end of the funnel rather. Yeah, now we're talking. So
I mean, you've been part of, you know, the kind of work we've already been doing with startups, the advisory services that we've been providing to startups, kind of as we've been trying to figure out what is the best kind of engagement model, what the startups need, how do we bridge the gap for them. So you've been part of that whole process. What has been your experience in terms of what you've observed or what you've seen, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, generally it would be, you know, we make the startup with an every time it's the same story, amazing product, amazing, you know, potential customer base. But then the issue is always, how do I reach more people? How do I build strategies that allow me to grow so that I'm still effective when I'm reaching more people? And it's just the same things, and most people don't know, like there are no strategies around. So when I see you sitting with someone and going like, so you have this, okay, fine. So you go do X, Y, Z and we build strategies around X, Y, Z, and then when you come back, we go through this and we build. So it's just something as small as that is figuring out, you know, how do you structure your sales? So this is how your market looks like. Let's separate it into 4 categories. Let's segment it. Something as small as that, you see it making, you know, it organizes their work for the next 2 weeks, and they can come back and tell you, so I have 5 people from the type of thing we did. So it's to be very specific, just making it's in the smallest of things. And it's what you keep saying, it's knowledge that it's very, like to you it's I want to say commonplace, like it's stuff you know, but for a market, no one teaches you that.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
No, I mean, yeah, so that's pretty much it. That's what we're trying to, that's what we are bringing to the market, right? Is making sure that our entrepreneurs are supported with the most practical, useful, effective knowledge for how to move their businesses from milestone to milestone to milestone. Once they've got their product in the market, they've done the hard work. How do they actually make money with this thing? Yeah, right? And that's exactly it. And it's in building the structure, because a business is as strong as the structure that's supporting it. Whether it's, you know, your financial modeling, determining how you price, you know, all these things. So that's part of the program we're working on. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, excited about the next year.
Yeah, man.
Excited about
super stoked.
The cohorts that we're already working with and the ones that we'll be working with in 2019.
Yeah,
awesome.
Exactly.
Cheers.
Yeah.